Suspense, adventure, mystery, danger, courage. Sorcerer. Roy Scheider in a new film by William Friedkin. Sorcerer.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Psychedelic here. Happy New Year to you all. Even though I'm shooting this on New Year's Day, it certainly doesn't feel like 2020 is over, with the whole main event of COVID and still occurring. I just hope things kind of neutralize themselves and, things are looking on the upside this year. So, yeah, during the holiday break, my job was of course crazy, but I won't get into that too much. But been working days and nights, longer hours, and because I'm pretty much in the midst of this COVID disaster, so it's been kind of hard to shoot these videos because you're just so exhausted at the end of the day. I just want to do these videos when I'm most comfortable, of course. So, anyways, I'm going to start off the new year with something a little different here. I'm not sure if this is going to be a series that's going to catch on or not, but I really wanted to do this particular review because ever since COVID, been kind of stuck in the house, can't socialize a whole lot. So what have we all been doing, including me? Well, I've been streaming films, both on my laptop and, on my TV. I purchased some different Blu-rays of classic films that I've always wanted to acquire or kind of upgrade to Blu-ray. Stuff I grew up with on like VHS and what have you. But this particular film we're going to talk about tonight is the main reason why I've kind of rediscovered my love for films. Because I've always loved cinema and films. I just never really expressed all this on my channel, but especially when I was like in my teenage years, I really got into like a lot of artsy sort of films, like David Lynch films and Stanley Kubrick, of course, the big names. But ever since COVID hit, I'm kind of looking into more, older classics that I may have missed over the years or have seen in the past but never really dove deep and, investigated what some of these films were about. And man, I've discovered some really wicked films this past year. So tonight we're going to be talking about a film that really pumped me to do this video. So we're going to be talking about William Friedkin's Sorcerer. This came out in 1977, and I'm going to probably insert some photos as I talk about the film, and I'll try to sneak in the TV spot if I can at the beginning of this video. But yeah, I finally picked up the Blu-ray of this. I had never seen it before. All I did was watch the trailer, the original trailer to this on YouTube, and I loved it so much that I was like, I need to see this. Like, something tells me this is going to be something very intriguing because, of course, I do trust the IMDb rating system, and this is rated pretty high on there. It's currently a 7.7, which, that's a very good rating, and I agree. I think that's a very fair rating for this film, if not higher than what I believe it should be. So, how did I ever discover this film? Well, I've always, of course, known about Tangerine Dream, and I decided to pick up the soundtrack just recently because I loved the film so much I felt like I needed to have the soundtrack. And of course, knowing of Tangerine Dream and loving their discography, this is one I've never listened to, but of course I've always saw this image online, and I just saw this haunting image of this truck. Like, I can't tell if it's chasing this dude on the bridge or what, but all I know is it's just a great image, and I was like, what's this all about? So, yeah, I decided to pick up the soundtrack, and before I dive into the film too, I wanted to say that I've noticed there's two variations of Sorcerer. There's the US version, but also the version released in Europe. And this soundtrack encompasses both versions. And I think in the UK it was called Wages of Fear, which was the original title. of the 1952 film, which I have not seen yet. That was the original film, and some people say they appreciate that version more. But I've heard, both sides kind of agreeing that both one or the other are better than the other. Some people kind of agree they're both, both very unique in their own way. So in a way, it's kind of a remake, but it's kind of a different rendition of Wages of Fear, I would say. Even though I've not seen the original film, but from what I've read, it seems very true. So where do we begin? So this came out in 1977, and it had a pretty big budget for its time, $24 million. So they had to bring two film studios in, Universal and Paramount, to finance this picture. And William Friedkin, after the success of The Exorcist, he, a lot like Michael Cimino, who did The Deer Hunter, had success with that film, another huge favorite of mine. Went off and did Heaven's Gate, whereas that film was a total disaster. It was way over budget and didn't make very much to recuperate from that, all that money they put into it. So William Friedkin, kind of had the freedom to do whatever he wanted. So he decided to, do a kind of a reproduction of this film, Wages of Fear. And for whatever reason, they titled it Sorcerer, which, right off the bat, doesn't really tell you a whole lot as far as like what you're going to get into. You might think maybe there's some magic or some kind of fantasy-like sort of storyline going throughout, and there is literally none. The only reference to Sorcerer is actually the name of one of the trucks in the film, which I will get to in a moment. And this is going to be a spoiler-free review for the most part. I'm going to, lay some fine detail of what it's about, but I'm not going to spoil anything. So, yeah, basically, so it was called Sorcerer. I think they wanted to kind of cash in on The Exorcist, and people thought maybe they were going to get into another, sort of demon film of some sort, and they were kind of cashing in on that whole thing. The problem is, the real bummer about this thing, having a $24 million budget, they were really hoping this was going to be a smash hit, and it just absolutely tanked when it came out. Only made like maybe 6 or 7 million against its 24 million budget. So it was kind of a total disaster, just a sleeper overnight. And I think a lot of the fact is to do with, there's three things. There's the Sorcerer title, it doesn't really tell you much about it. And it either opened like the same week after or the same week during another famous film came out. And what was that film called? Star Wars. Damn it, Star Wars. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for that, but not the hugest Star Wars fan. I saw the first film. It's very good for what it is. Just not my type of picture, really. Anyway, Star Wars really took over, and this film just kind of bombed because of that. Damn it. Because this film is amazing, and I'll explain why once I get the plot out. So, how do I put this? Basically, starts out with 4 vignettes. And this is the other reason why perhaps the film didn't do so well. Starts out with these 4 vignettes, like a prologue to this film, where it shows different countries. It shows Veracruz, Jerusalem, and then Paris. And within those moments, it's like 15 minutes or so worth of prologue. And it's all it's in non-English language. So they had to use a lot of subtitles, and to a lot of Americans, they probably just thought, what kind of foreign film is this? What film did we walk into here? I thought we were going to see like, some demons and some magic and stuff, and all we see is like this, all these hitmen and all these criminals. So basically, the film starts out with these 4 vignettes of 4 different people who are like the 4 main characters in the film, and the first one's a hitman. It's like a minute into the film. All you see is this guy shoot this other man, we don't know the backstory. Takes off, and then we're just suddenly in Jerusalem. So, the film does kind of have like a rocky, slow start. There's no denying that. And then basically in Jerusalem, you have like these bombings going off. The city is just in corrupt warfare. And you see one man escape. Every man escapes in their vignettes. And then we move on to Paris, where we see this banker who, is kind of like into money laundering or fraud. It's not really explained. It's explained very vaguely of what's going on. But you can definitely tell he's in some sort of trouble. And so he leaves the country. And then we're introduced to like pretty much our lead character, the American in the film, Roy Scheider, who of course was Chief Brody in Jaws. And he is like, I guess he's the driver for this like mafia crew. And they're stealing from the church. And we don't know the whole backstory. A lot of it is thrown right at you in your face, very William Friedkin style, And they take off, and something major happens where he kills like one of this mafia king's brother, who is a priest at the church. And they take off with the money, and they get into this car accident, and this, kills off all the members who took this money. And you see Roy Scheider lead the accident, and eventually he's, his partner, Vinny, I think his name was, tells him he has to leave the country, and we never know where. It's kind of like this very fictional town. All of a sudden, 15 minutes into the film, after the prologue, we're introduced to this very poverty-ridden city. I forget the name. There's so many names in this picture, but you can tell right away, looking at all these images, it's very poverty-driven. Very just disgusting atmosphere. It looks like that place might have a virus of some sort. And so we never get a clear estimate of how long he had been in this town or this country. Pretty much Latin America, South America. We never really know where they're at. But you can see there's a local job at the oil fields. And Roy Scheider, I think, works for like helping deliver shipments off of planes, and very low income kind of jobs. And you see all these four men from the prologues are in this country, and because they kind of fled the country, the timeline is never really exact on how long they've been there, but we can kind of tell they've probably been there long enough to the point where they're just like, I got to get out because this is not working for me. It's a very dangerous state that they're in. We need to have money to lead the country. Well, basically, the next part of the plot, which is not spoiling too much, I've noticed in the U.S. and international version, they show like terrorists blow up this oil well, which sparks another bombing. But in the U.S. version, we're never shown that. We're shown that all these rebels are destroying this oil well, but in the U.S. version, they're never there. You can see them in the background in the international version. Yeah, so this oil well blows up, and that's a U.S.-based oil well company, and they're actually there illegally. They're running into trouble as well financially, and so they're trying to find these truck drivers to deliver this nitroglycerin that's been sitting in this very rickety shack and is very, very close to exploding, and that is the only way to take care of this oil fire that has destroyed their oil well. So, they're deciding to take it up on a plane. They cancel that idea because of turbulence and a lot of vibration going on. And so what they decide to do is drive trucks and take these boxes of nitroglycerin, and they don't want to have these spill or anything because it's a very tight situation that they're in, and they're willing to pay these drivers like I think it was $40,000 a piece or $40,000, two drivers in two trucks. So they basically find their drivers. and of course it is the four main characters from the prologue, and um, and just what follows. And this is like an hour or so into the film. A lot has happened. There's a lot I haven't talked about, but I don't want to spoil too much. The main meat of the film is like a little over an hour into the film, and up until that point, you might be thinking, this thing is kind of running really slow. Like, when's it ever going to pick up? And this is what I love about Sorcerer. It just really takes the patient viewer into a lot of suspense as to like what's going to happen when they take these these bombs out of their vicinity to risking their own lives, going through hundreds of miles of jungle. I think it's like 218 miles he rode on the truck. I mean, it's just so intense. The whole time you actually care about some of these characters, but you also care about like the journey itself, seeing if they're going to make it or not. And so they take off, and they run into all sorts of things. I'm not going to go too deep into them, but they run into some truck trouble. They run into these obstacles in the way. But of course, like I shared in this haunting image of the truck on this bridge here, this was also the movie poster for the film. This scene here, the bridge scene, is like one of the most grueling, nail-biting scenes I've ever seen. And to know how like all these special effects went into place is just mind-boggling for its time. They had to actually build this bridge. So here's some fun facts for you. Since they had to build this bridge, it actually cost them $1 million to make this, and they chose their destination to build this bridge. Cost them $1 million, and then the river dries up after all that work. And so they relocated, and they're actually legitimately in the Dominican Republic, filming this. And apparently the film crew told them like the director of The Exorcist is in town, and apparently people like fled away. That's kind of what scared them off. But yeah, they went to this other location in this jungle, and they rebuilt the bridge for another $1 million. And apparently that river was close to drying up, so they had to shoot it very fast. And they had some special effects where they had these helicopters flying over top to kind of give it that rainforest feel. And you can't even tell. I mean, there's like legit no errors or anything detected that it's special effects. It all looks very realistic. And they actually had to drive this truck across this bridge, across this river, even though it looks like it's raging waters underneath. You get to hear the visuals too. That's what I love about the audio in this, on this Blu-ray. You get to hear all the creaking wood falling underneath the truck. Very little score in the background, except like this really howling wind. And you're just watching this, these trucks going across, and you're just like, are these things going to tip over? Or, it's very, I just can't describe it. It's just so grueling and gritty filmmaking that you just never see these days. And I think that's why Star Wars succeeded a lot. I think audiences were kind of ready for something new, something more adventurous, and this is kind of like the last gasp of breath that cinema was really gritty and very passionate about projects that they went all out, and this film certainly did with that bridge scene, for sure. So there's several different scenes I could talk about. The hallucination scene is one of my favorite parts in here, and like I said, there's a lot of details, even though it's a very simple story. There's a lot thrown at you with these different, they meet these bandits on the road, and then eventually, I probably won't give the ending away. Definitely wouldn't, but I will say, from the beginning of the film with the prologue, it will all come full circle, and the ending is going to either be one of the most chilling twists in cinema, or else, just a very depressing, sorrowful ending. It's whatever you decide it to be. But it is. When I first watched the ending, I was just like, wow. Like, I totally forgot about these I totally forgot about this moment, you know. So with that said, Sorcerer, I could say so much about it, but I don't want to keep you here like all night long. Definitely rediscovered my love for films after watching this. It's just really become something that, you know, makes music and films just so passionate for me, because they speak a lot, even though they take a lot of hard work to make. And they just seem more than life, you know. Sometimes, you know, they're just so fascinating to watch, and I just can't believe how overlooked and underrated this film is. There is some incredible footage on YouTube of highlights from the UK version that you never see in the US. But ultimately, I think this film, in general, if you want to find like the hidden meaning behind this film, it would probably relate a lot to ultimately fate. And by fate, I mean, you know, basically all the things that life throws at you. You know, once something very good happens, you know, something turns right around and bites you in the ass, you know. It's kind of one of those moments where I think that's one of the bigger hidden meanings behind this film. And there's a lot of symbolism and lots of images that you look at in the film and you're just like, you know, it really foretells the future for the, you know, their fate as to what occurs in, you know, on their journey and on their embarkment in these trucks. And I've just never seen a film quite like this, and it just really sparked me to make this video. And hopefully some of you guys, you know, check this film out. So Sorcerer, can't rate it highly enough. I mean, I was so glad when I found this. I guess I never showed the back of this yet. There's of course the hinting towards the bridge scene. And this Blu-ray was specifically digitized and remastered specifically for Blu-ray, and it gave it a totally different color hue in some of the different scenes, because apparently the VHS version, which I wouldn't mind seeing, must be a totally different experience, because there's really no color and doesn't really give you the rawness, and doesn't really bring you inside the jungle like the Blu-ray does. It does a fascinating job on this reproduction of the film, and I love it. So yeah, and of course there's a montage scene as well when they're fixing these trucks up, and it's also another scene worth noting, backed by Tangerine Dream's score. And I would say for the soundtrack for this film, I would say they kind of use their soundtrack pretty sparingly. I mean, it's definitely in the film, but they don't use the main title very often, except for in the beginning of the European version, and Betrayal, the closing track on side 2. I actually first heard that track on the Warriors trailer, which I totally forgot they used that. I'm never going to think of the Warriors anymore, but I just never forgotten that. And so Betrayal, it's very, very haunting, very John Carpenter-esque sort of track, way ahead of its time for late 70s. Yeah, very cool film. Can't recommend it enough. I wish I could say a lot more about it, but I figure this is probably as far as I'm going to get without spoiling anything. So Roy Scheider, probably one of his best roles I've ever seen him in. And yeah, after watching the French Connection once again, and I also noticed he uses some of the same characters, like I forget his name. He's Roy Scheider's buddy in the film. He was actually one of the cops in the French Connection, and I also read he was a cop in real life in New York City. I forget the guy's name though. I think he's used in a few of Friedkin's films. So that about does it, and hope you guys check this film out. This is the good stuff, and watch the Blu-ray. It's, you know, the visuals, the sound design, everything is just perfect for me. And so, you know, some viewers, if you aren't very patient with films, try to be with this one. I'll say it again, it starts out kind of slow, but it's well worth the payoff. at the end, and you might have to watch it maybe a couple times to figure out, you know, which country you're in, and, you know, try to figure out where you're at, because sometimes the film doesn't explain itself very well. That's one of maybe the few failing points of it, but I think that's a good note too, because it kind of wants you to keep watching it over and over and see what you missed, and all sorts of stuff like that. So we'll see if we do any more film reviews. I'm not sure if I will in the future, but just wanted to get this one out because I love it. Can't you tell? I also do have some vinyl records to share. I have like 5 or 6 since I last been on camera, so that'll probably be up next, hopefully soon. So you guys take care. Check out Sorcerer, and we shall see you soon.